We are ready to resume our session. We are now moving on to our very first discussion panel on workforce and the evolution of digitalization, helping workers cope with the promise and pitfalls of digitalization. To guide us through this session, we are pleased to have our exceptional moderator with us. Please join me to welcome Ms. Makiko Matsumoto, Employment Specialist, ILO Decent Work Network Support Team, Regional Office for Asia Pacific, Bangkok, Thailand. Please.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's start the first session where I think we hopefully start talking and discussing more about the nitty-gritty of the topics. Perhaps I invite the speakers first. So we have excellent speakers with us today, three from Turkey, Philippines, and here, Malaysia. So we have Her Excellency SELÇUK, sorry if my pronunciation is wrong. And we have Mr. Lucas from Philippines, Dole. And Mr. Azirruan bin Ariffin from PERKESO. So sorry for my bad pronunciation of your names. Before just introducing these excellent speakers, maybe just to recap, I think the first session gave us a very inspiring and also very pertinent summary of issues around the digitalization of the economy and what does it mean for the workers and the enterprises already. So this one we are going to hear from your experience, insights, and perhaps perspectives further from your country-specific context. But just to summarize, I think there may be two aspects. So in this, when we talk about digitalization, one is about digitalization in the government. So whether you call it e-government or your effort to enhance public service delivery through better use of digital technology. So that's one aspect. And then I think the other aspect is, of course, what's going on in the market. So where the workers are, employers are. And from there, perhaps some perspectives may differ, at least from workers' perspective. When you talk digital skills, you can start from something very simple that you can almost self-learn in a matter of, one day, to something where you really need to accumulate your knowledge and expertise over years. So, there is this entire range when we talk about digital skills. The other aspect, of course, is enterprises. Where do they see the opportunities to introduce digital technology in their operations? It's not everything becoming digital. It's part of their operations in doing businesses, which are changing. So what does it mean, the kind of skills that are more likely to come when the employers are perhaps moving in certain directions? So what kind of thing you see? So let me just briefly introduce our excellent distinguished speakers. So Excellency SELÇUK is the Director General of SESRIC. And, you know, I think all the speakers have excellent academic background in very diverse but relevant fields, so maybe I don't go too much into the academic background. She has been appointed the first Minister of Family, Labor and Social Services in Turkey in 2018. And so, how do you say, brings with her this excellent combination of solid academic background, but also practices and how do you do the programs. Similarly, let's move on to Mr. Lucas, who is currently managing the Policy Development Division of DOLE's Bureau of Local Employment in Philippines. And once again, you have been involved in many labor market-related work, like wages, etc. But perhaps you have also been teaching some courses on ICT, so you have some interesting combination of background, which we hope to hear more from you. And Mr. Ariffin, who is the head of employment insurance system here in Malaysia. So I think you are probably the more familiar to everybody here. So maybe don't need to introduce too much, but well, once again, you've been involved in a lot of employment service related segments of services like job support related to job search, income allowance, and so on. Perhaps to highlight, you have been leading the work on, it's disappeared, My Future Jobs portal, which is for the job seekers and employers. So it's the job matching portal. So perhaps we'd like to hear also more from what's been done, etc. So I think we can move straight with the first speaker, Excellency SELÇUK. Would you like to present? It's up to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, it's a great pleasure to address you in this August gathering with all of the enthusiastic people who are interested in labor force and also public employment. As SESRIC, we are working for 57 member countries of OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and we regularly prepare and submit OIC labor market reports to the Islamic Conference of Labor Ministers, periodically done. And this report broadly analyzes the current state of the labor market in OIC member countries, and also it discusses some important aspects of labor market developments. Today I will present the current state of the labor market in our member countries, and also highlight the global trends in automation and also digitalization, and discuss how our member countries can prepare for this transformation. Okay. So will it be working from this side? Okay, let's start with the current state of labor market in OIC countries. It's working or not? Okay. It's okay. On the left, we see the growth in total labor force in OIC countries by age group. And as of 2022, the total labor force in our OIC member countries exceeds 700 million. And the share of our countries in global labor force is increasing. We can say that 1/5 of the global total labor force is residing in OIC member countries. And when we look to the labor force participation rate, we see that while the share of OIC countries in world total labor force is increasing, their labor force participation rate is not properly increasing. Oh, okay. It's not particularly promising, and as shown in this figure, the average participation rate in OIC countries is around 56%, and it is expected to reach its pre-pandemic levels in 2024, and this labor force participation rate is significantly below the world average of almost 600. And when we look at the gender differences, we observed that there is a significant disparity between male and female labor force participation in OIC countries. The difference between these two groups is more than 35%, whereas globally, this difference stands at 25%. And as a result of lower labor force participation rate, employment to population ratio in OIC member countries remains significantly below the world average and average of other member countries. What I mean from other member countries group is the developed countries, non-OIC developing countries, and the world. It is currently below 53% in OIC countries, while this ratio is above 58% for the developed countries. And we know that unemployment is a very major critical issue for all of our member states, and it is now around 6.3 in OIC member countries on average. So OIC countries have on average a higher unemployment rate than other member countries, and we can state that there are multiple reasons for this persistent higher unemployment rates in OIC countries, including population growth, skills mismatch, limited job opportunities, and also weak labor market institutions. And when we look to the female unemployment, we can say that although we don't observe any significant difference in another country groups, female labor force finds it more difficult to find a job than male labor force in OIC. And again, male unemployment rate in OIC countries is similar to that of the world average, but female unemployment rate is significantly above it. When we come to the youth unemployment, OIC countries struggle to address the challenge of youth unemployment because it remains around 12 and 13% all around the years. So average youth unemployment in OIC countries is estimated to be below the average of non-OIC developing countries and the world average as well. And when we come to the employment issue, we should also look to the labor underutilization. There are also people who are not working enough or not in the right job that match their skills, what we call is a labor underutilization. And in some countries, although the unemployment rate is low, labor underutilization can be very high. For example, in Senegal, the unemployment rate is as low as 3%. But when we look at the composite rate of labor underutilization, it is around 25%. So while we are considering unemployment rate, we should also focus on the labor underutilization in all of our member countries. And also, there are some countries where some people receive advanced level of education, but they continue to face higher unemployment rates, like the Palestine, Tunisia, Jordan, and Morocco. They have very high number of persons with advanced education, but also high unemployment rate. And of course, for all of the public employment institutions and for the ministries of labor, another important issue is the needs. So globally, 24% of young people are currently not in employment, education, or training. When we look at this value for the member countries, OIC member countries, it is on average 29%. So before going to automation and digitalization, let me now provide more insights on the skills and productivity, because these are very important for preparing our labor force for the future of the work. So when we look at the employment by education levels, we can see that more than 58% of our workers in OIC countries have basic or less than basic level of education, while on the other hand, when we see the developed countries, nearly half of the workers in the developed countries have an education level at a level of advanced education. So this will also is very important for preparing our labor force for the future of work. So, and only this for the skill mismatch and occupations, around 17% of labor force in our member countries are considered to be highly educated, whereas this ratio is about 45% in developing countries. Skill mismatch and skill match is very important for every country, and for our countries, the match rate is around 37%, whereas this share is estimated to be at 57% for the developed countries. And when we look at the distribution of skills mismatch, we can say that the match workers are 37%, while 53% is undereducated and 10% is overeducated. This reflects the extent of the skill gaps that need to be addressed to improve the productivity and competitiveness in our member countries. And as a global trend, we should also look to the employment by economic activity. And as a global trend, employment in agriculture continues to fall across the world, but it remains relatively high in our member countries. And another issue is the foreign workers, as you know. Today, migrant workers represent a considerable share of workforce in major high-income countries and make important contributions to the societies and economies. Almost 10% of total employment in developed countries is estimated to be foreign citizens, and this share is only 1.6 in our countries and 3.9 in non-OIC developing countries. Another issue that is important for the future of work is the labor productivity. And when we go to the right-hand side of the graphic, we can see that the labor productivity of our member countries is low compared to the world average, and nearly one-third or one-fourth of the developed countries' average. So we should, for every country, we should focus more on the labor productivity to be prepared for the future of work. And vulnerable employment is another issue, but to save time, I can only say that in OIC countries, the share of vulnerable employment has continuously declined to reach 50%, but it is still well above the averages of the other country groups. And related to the automation, sectoral transformation, and changing nature of the work, in light of this important information, we say that the emerging and declining skills associated with this global trend, and we want to focus more on adapting to the new skills for the labor force. And when we look to the literature, provides diverse evidence on the impacts of digitalization and automation. And negative impacts include concerns of increasing structural employment and inequality, reduced job opportunities, and challenges in finding skilled workers for the evolving labor market. On the positive side, we have the potential when we have increased the digitalization, we have the potential for increased free time. We know that the productivity will rise. We will increase the competitiveness. Also, it will create new jobs. It will also have positive impacts on the economy and environment. Another important indicator of rising automation is the number of industrial robots. And as you can see from the figures, there is a constant growth in the number of industrial robots all over the years, and it is expected to accelerate. And when beyond this technology adoption, it's not only about robotics. We know that it is also, there are a lot of digital platforms, there are a lot of apps that we are using. So the digitalization requires enterprises to change their ways of operating, to move from more labor-intensive techniques or ways, methods, to the more technology-intensive types of work organization. And I give special importance to this slide because it is about digital skills gap. And we know that a major concern about the acceleration of the advanced technologies is that it widened the digital divide, digital gap among the workers and between the different groups of workers. And this digital gap for every country has some serious implications on their employability and earnings. And according to the comprehensive index, most economies are failing to breach the digital skills divide. But fortunately, we have 3 member countries among the top 10 performers in the world in terms of digital skills. And these are United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and the third one is Malaysia, that we are proud of. So we can say that Malaysia is among the top 10 performers all around the world in terms of digital skills. On the other hand, we have, on the bottom side, for the least 10 performers, we have 5 member countries. But we can say that in terms of digital skills, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Malaysia, Oman, Saudi Arabia, these are the high-ranked countries that have more employability in the future. And we are proud that we are now being a part of organization here in KL. And also for the skills gap and formal training, when we look at the World Bank Enterprises surveys, the majority of firms in the world state that they identify that inadequately educated workforce is a very major concern for their job performance. And so for most of the firms, companies, they tend to offer more training for their workers, for their labor force. So considering these significant skill gaps reported in many countries, this demonstrates 2 things, like either a sort of incoherence in training offered. This means that organizations should focus more on more coherent training programs, or lack of additional resources to learn outside of the workplaces, what we call vocational education. And another thing is that rising digitalization and automation will also lead to the emergence of new skills and decline of the certain existing skills. So we can see that skills related to the data analysis, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and digital marketing will likely to be more demand. On the other hand, we can say that manual tasks like the basic data entry or traditional manufacturing skills may become less relevant. In 2023, the most important skills for workers are found to be, as you can see from the right-hand side of the graph, the creative thinking, the first one. The second one is analytical thinking, and the third one is technological literacy. I think if we can ask to any of the CEOs in the world now, they can state that these are the 3 most important skills that need to be addressed in the coming years. I also give special importance to this labor force churn in OIC member countries. This is a very important indicator. The labor force churn means that the PERKESO reallocation of workers and jobs, globally it is about 23%. And you can see that some of our countries are above this rate in like Pakistan, Indonesia, Bahrain, Turkey, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Egypt. This will also affect these countries because it will affect the PERKESO reallocation of the existing workers. So when we call to the sectoral assessment of the employment in OIC countries, we observed that employment trends in OIC countries are mostly in line with the global trends. And like, for example, in mining and manufacturing sectors, while the share of employment is globally falling, it is increasing in OIC countries. Or in case of public administration and defense sector, the share of employment is falling in OIC countries, while it is increasing in the rest of the world. So planning for the next generation is very important for our labor markets. You know that there are both challenges and opportunities associated with rising digitalization and automation in the workplace. So when we come to the challenges, it vary depending on the specific context, but some common challenges are, as I mentioned before, digital divide, skills gap and mismatch, job displacement and unemployment, limited fiscal space, and also lack of enabling environment. And also regulatory environment is also very important, and shift in global value change. On the other hand, what we can gain opportunities for these strategic planning issues, this is leapfrogging, industrial upgrading, this can be smart agriculture and rural development, it can foster inclusive growth and development, and also improved government efficiency. So, like we can state that for all of the member countries, important thing is about planning, monitoring, and evaluation, the labor force, and we should focus more on skills development and education. We should also develop industry and sector-specific strategies. Other than that, we need to focus on regulatory and ethical policies and worker engagement in the labor force. We should focus more on innovation and entrepreneurship, and also we should have some conducive environment for the labor market and social protection. Other than that, for the getting prepared for the future of work, digital infrastructure is important. Demographic opportunities to benefit from the demographic opportunities, especially the potential of youth in our member countries, is very important. And of course, collaboration and partnerships are important for our member countries. So thank you very much for your attention. So I think it's the time. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for your very comprehensive overview and within a limited time. I think for the sake of time, I would like to move to the second speaker before we can go back. Thanks.
Next slide. Distinguished guests and esteemed colleagues, good morning. In Filipino, it's magandang umaga. On behalf of the Philippine Department of Labor and Employment, I am very glad to share with you our initiatives towards improving the Filipino workforce towards digitalization. But before that, let me thank the World Association of Public Employment Services, or WAVES, for giving us the opportunity to share with you our presentation today, and also to our Malaysian colleagues, Malaysian government, for hosting this event. My presentation is on helping the Filipino workers in thriving in the age of digital transformation and in avoiding the pitfalls of digital transformation. Next slide, please. To start, let me share with you the profile of my country, the Philippines. It is now home to 119 million Filipinos, making it the 13th largest economy in the world in terms of population. With a median age of 25 years old, the Philippines now has the largest generation of young people in its history. 31 million young Filipinos are in the age of 15 to 30 in 2022. We are as young as the African country Tonga and younger than our neighboring countries Malaysia and Indonesia, with the median age of 31. Just in case you want to know, the median age in Malaysia is 31. And talking about digitalization, almost 87 million Filipinos, or 73% of our population, are internet users. Majority of them are young people. Next slide, please. It is important to talk about young people because they are the potential talents for digitalization. The level of digital transformation maturity of a country and its enterprises lies with the digital readiness of the young people. In the Philippines, there were 4.34 million Filipinos who were provided with basic, higher, TVET, and professional development interventions from 2022 to 2023. Young people of this population, particularly the senior high school graduates, the college graduates and TVET graduates, as well as professional licensure examination passers and youth employability program beneficiaries of the Department of Labor and Employment are considered potential talents for digitalization as they are ready to enter the workforce. Next slide, please. And speaking of digitalization, the identified 10 key employment growth sectors in the Philippines, which includes IT BPM or IT, business process management, construction, health and wellness, manufacturing, transport and logistics, agriculture, energy, tourism, education, and creative industries, have been in the process of continuous digitalization, and digital transformation. That is why preparing the workforce to become digital ready and digital literates is a must in the Philippine society. In addition, the emerging economies of digital, care, and green, which have corresponding enabling laws in the Philippines, have pushed the Philippine government to further increase labor force participation in these sectors, given the changes in the demand of the labor market. Truly, digitalization continues to reshape many industries, and such has transformed the way we live, communicate, and work. Next slide, please. Given all these changes in the economy and in the labor market, let us see how my country, the Philippines, has performed based on the different indices measuring the country's digital readiness and competitiveness. First, the Global Innovation Index ranks countries by their capacity for and success in innovation. In 2023, the Philippines moved up 3 spots to 56th place out of 132 economies. Citing the reason for improvement is the country's production of more innovation outputs relative to its level of innovation investment. Meanwhile, the Philippines ranked 52nd out of 64 countries based on the World Competitiveness Index, which analyzes and ranks countries according to how they manage their competencies to achieve long-term value creation. The drop in 2023 marked the 6th year that the Philippines stayed 13th out of 14 economies in the Asia-Pacific region. Very sad to know. Meanwhile, the Philippines achieved its lowest ranking in the Global Digital Competitiveness Index, which started in 2017. The Philippines fell from 56th place last year after it arrested 3 years of consecutive drop in 2022. The report showed that the Philippines ranking fell across all 3 digital competitiveness factors measured, which are knowledge, technology, and future readiness. And finally, based on Digital Quality of Life Index, the Philippines is at 60th place out of 121 countries ranked. This ranking is based on the 5 pillars of such as internet affordability, internet quality, e-infrastructure, e-security, and e-government. Despite slipping in the annual rankings, the Philippines scored 0.49, better than the global average and the Asian average. Next slide, please. These world rankings paint a weak country profile in terms of digital competitiveness and digital skills. Reports indicate that the Philippines lag behind its regional counterpeers in terms of foundational digital skills. Policies and programs on accelerating the use of digital platforms and improving digital skills of Filipino workforce will ensure improvement in these rankings in the years to come as opportunities continue to grow. Next slide, please. Aside from the indicators I mentioned a while ago, these are the national, regional, and industry-level pitfalls of digital technologies in the Philippines. These challenges, based on our observations, continues to evolve as digital transformations continue to reimagine the way businesses and economies work. Closing the gap of digital divide has become more challenging than before. Next slide, please. But the Philippines is moving forward. Next slide, please. Given these rankings and standings in the Philippines, given the pitfalls of digitalization, the question that we want to answer is that where does the Philippines want to go as far as innovation, digital transformation, and improved quality of life are concerned? Next slide, please. The Philippine government initiated development plans that will represent the future that we want, including the kind of workers we want to be as Filipinos. The ambition natin 2040, on the left side of the screen, or in English, our aspiration in 2040 represents the collective long-term vision and aspirations of Filipino people for themselves and for the country in the next 25 years. It describes the kind of life that we Filipinos want to live and how the country will be in 2040. As such, it is an anchor for development planning across at least 4 administrations or 4 presidents in the Philippines. The development plan started with a survey where Filipinos were asked what kind of life you want in the next 25 years. And the Filipinos said that they want a strongly rooted, comfortable, and secure life by 2040. For the current administration, the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028 was developed, which for the labor and employment concern envisions Filipinos to have enhanced income earning ability that can better support their aspirations. And finally, the Philippine Labor and Employment Plan 2023 to 2028 serves a strategic roadmap for labor and employment objectives aligned with the Philippine Development Plan. Outcomes and strategies identified in the plan were based on tripartite consultations. The Labor and Employment Plan has 3 interrelated priority areas geared at ensuring balanced and responsive employment policies and programs for all. First is maximizing productive, remunerative, freely chosen, and sustainable work and employment opportunities. Second, ensuring labor governance that respects all fundamental principles and rights at work, international labor standards, and human rights. And third, building equitable and inclusive social protection for all. Next slide, please. The National Technical Education and Skills Development Plan 2023 to 2028 is anchored on the vision of a globally recognized Philippine TVET as a catalyst for education and lifelong learning, workforce, and socio-economic transformation, with area-based demand-driven TVET as its central strategy. The National Technical Education and Skills Development Plan aims to provide access to high-quality opportunities for lifelong learning, as well as to provide Filipinos with smart and innovative skills. With this, the Philippine TVET will proactively address the urgency for constant skilling, reskilling, and upskilling, while cultivating critical thinking, communications, collaboration, adaptability, futures thinking, and higher-order cognitive skills of the country's workforce and entrepreneurs. Finally, the Philippine government also launched the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy document aimed at providing a roadmap and strategies for improving innovation at all levels and in all aspects. These development plans guide the Philippine government, workers, job seekers, employers, and other members of the Philippine society as to how they want to move forward as a nation, particularly in adapting to the changing needs of the labor market and the changing needs of the economy. Next slide, please. Aside from these plans, there are already existing enabling laws that ensure the Philippines' path towards a more digital economy is on track. Next slide. Legislations have been in place to ensure that future Filipino workforce would be ready to perform tasks, adapt to work from home arrangement and work from anywhere arrangement, and deliver goods and services with the use of technology. Next slide, please. First is the Trabaho para sa Bayan, or in English, Decent Jobs for Filipinos, aims to generate 3 million quality jobs by 2028 by creating a master plan on employment generation and recovery. It aims to accelerate policies, programs, and services that will address job skills mismatch, underemployment, and unemployment in the country. Currently, the Philippine government is conducting its regional consultations to gather the insights of the stakeholders on the new and emerging jobs in their localities, which for most of the region, as of now, has identified digitalization as one of the jobs that are very emerging in their localities. Also, the regional consultations aim to identify the strategies to address the current labor and employment concerns in their localities. Another enabling law that we have is the Philippine Digital Workforce Development Act. Upon recognizing the transformation in the world of work due to rapid acceleration of digitalization and advances in technology such as AI and automation across a range of industries and sectors, the law mandates the enhancement of the skills and competitiveness of Philippine workforce. To capacitate the Filipino workforce, it further mandates the provision of necessary infrastructure and in collaboration with the private sectors, the upskilling, reskilling, and training of Filipino workforce on digital technology and innovations for employability and competitiveness in the fourth industrial revolution. Another recently passed law is the Tatak Pinoy or Proudly Pinoy Act, which aims to enhance the competitiveness of local industries in the global market and fosters the production of high-quality goods and services. And a huge indicator of this in this endeavor is the digitalization of industries. Next slide, please. Next is the Philippine Creative Industries Act, which is a law that mandates the development of a vibrant Philippine creative industry by protecting and strengthening the rights and capacity of creative firms, artists, creators, creative workers, indigenous cultural communities, creative content providers, and other stakeholders. Next, experts see that the Philippines as the fastest emerging start hub in the world. According to 2024 Global Startup Ecosystem Report, Manila's startup ecosystem was valued at $6.4 billion, nearly double the previous year's valuation at $3.5 billion. And this is aligned with the Innovative Startup Act, which aims to strengthen, promote, and develop an innovative and entrepreneurial ecosystem and culture in the Philippines. And finally, the Philippine Innovation Act aims to generate and scale up action in all levels and all areas of education, training, research, and development toward promoting innovation and internationalization activities of MSMEs. This year, we conducted the National Innovation Day with the theme Unboxing Filipino Innovation Mindset. It was held in April 2024 with the aim of increasing awareness on innovation through seminars, cultivate innovative culture and mindset through hackathons and future thinking workshops, and mainstream Filipino innovation or Filipino innovation through partnership with various stakeholders such as academe, private sector, and local government units. These laws mandate different government agencies to scale up their policies, programs, and services to create a more competitive environment and more workers and businesses thriving because of digitalization. Next slide, please. At a more specific level, I would like to share with you some of the Philippine government initiatives that ensure the development of digital skills of Filipino workforce. Next slide, please. We have the National Innovation Agenda that ignites enthusiasm, foster collaboration, and engage innovation stakeholders, including the academe, private sector, and workers in the implementation of innovation agenda and strategies. Next is the Philippine Qualification Framework that describes all levels of educational qualifications and sets the standard for qualification outcomes. It is a quality-assured national system for the development, recognition, and award system based on the standards of knowledge, skills, and values acquired in different ways and methods by learners and workers in the country. Relative to this is the Philippine Skills Framework, which was developed in support of the Human Capital Development Initiative of the government under the Inclusive Innovation and Industrial Strategy, or I3S. There is an ongoing digital technology and digital skills mapping in the country that aims to identify available digital skills and competencies of the current workforce. So our team is going to different regions in the country to understand what are the digital skills that are being lacked in the localities or in the region, and what are the available opportunities for them to become upskilled in that area. It is in partnership with the Department of Information and Communications Technology in the country. In addition, the Philippine government also launched the National AI Strategy to increase the use of AI in industries. This includes the need to capacitate the workers in the use of AI. Also, the Center for AI Research was also launched, which will serve as the research arm of the government on AI, big data, and other related researches on technology. Next slide, please. All these innovations and contributions from all the regions of the country and all public employment services offices serves as the backbone of the labor and employment concerns at the local government agencies. So we have 16 regions with 1,926 public employment offices in the Philippines. Next slide. Aside from the initiatives mentioned a while ago at the national level, the public employment service offices in the Philippines serve its client and ensures that it performs its core services on job search assistance, labor market information services, active labor market programs, administration of unemployment insurance benefits, and regulatory services. These services have digitalization perspective and dimension. For instance, in its job search assistance, our public employment service offices help job seekers and workers find jobs that are related to IT, animation, cybersecurity, data science, and all other types of work that is pushed by digitalization. On labor market information services, our public employment service offices provide update and statistics on in-demand and emerging jobs, for instance, in IT and business process management and other related industries. It includes salary, compensation, location, and requirement for the job. Next, on active labor market programs, we have career development support services which are conducted to guide the students and job seekers in aligning their aspirations and values with the jobs that they want. A more important aspect is to lead them to the in-demand jobs by getting the courses and skills related to these jobs. Our public employment service offices also assist displaced workers through the administration of unemployment insurance benefits. It ensures that those whose jobs would be displaced due to digitalization will also be able to receive unemployment insurance benefits and be referred to upskilling and reskilling programs and other training opportunities for them to go back to work. Finally, our public employment service offices implement regulatory services, particularly on the conduct of job fair. They ensure that job fairs are conducted based on the guidelines issued by the Department of Labor and Employment, and that they collect, analyze, and disseminate labor market information based on the types of jobs posted, qualifications of job seekers, and profiles of the employer, making sure that these would be efficient for the employment of the job seekers in their localities, and that the employers would find the right job seekers in their area. Next slide. These are just some of the many initiatives of the Philippine government towards ensuring that the Filipino workforce are supported through the information services, reskilling, upskilling, and qualifications and skills framework. Because what we want is for every Filipino to be future ready in a digital world that is ever changing. Next slide. For us to achieve a strongly rooted, comfortable, and secure life. Next slide, please. And I hope that, next slide. I hope that I was able to draw a picture of the Philippines and its digital transformation roadmap. Let us remember, as mentioned a while ago, that workers will not be displaced by technologies. They will be displaced by those workers who can use technologies efficiently and effectively. Let us also remember that without us, without our workers, technologies will not work. Maraming salamat po, and thank you for listening to my presentation.
Thank you very much, and sorry for rushing you at the end. We have one more speaker, but just picking up from the first and second presentation, I think there are at least two aspects. One is related to how you assess where the skills gap. So you used some kind of index, use a different approach. The other is perhaps, you have actually very well organized policies, programs, and regulatory framework in place, but what are the some of the challenges? Well, let's see if we have time to get there, so please.
Hello. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. Thank you very much, Makiko. I think I have heard from two of our colleagues. I think, Makiko, this is third time you're my moderator for this year alone. Last time was Autism Association. All right. Now, what I'm going to share today, I think I'm not going to actually talk about the too much about the numbers. Yeah. But I think I'm going to talk about challenging ourselves, accepting the fact, and understand the need that we need to change. That's why I'll be talking about it's more on revolutionizing, very hard word to say, and humanizing public employment services. Why I'm saying this? Because, you can talk about, any structure, whatever, but at the end of the day, if you don't get the right people and the right mindset, it won't move, right? Okay, now, the next slide. I'll make sure it's within 15 minutes, Makiko. Yeah. Okay, now, the first thing is, what I'm going to show you. Now, if you look at those pictures, are they still around? Kodak, I used to remember, I think if anyone of you know Kodak, it means that you're the median 31. So, Kodak nowadays, no more. Nokia, no more. Compact used to be like a huge, computer. Now there's no more. When you talk about Pontiac used to be, every time when you go into the village, whoever owned Pontiac, there will be like top ranking guys in that village. But nowadays, after they've been taken over by GM, they are no more there. Pan Am used to be every new aircraft flying. Pan Am will be the first one to be, the company who are going to actually test that aircraft. So they changed the whole world of aviation industry previously. Now, Netscape, this one interesting. Most of you know Yahoo. Netscape used to be the first one. I still remember when, chatting with my wife last time, through MRC, Netscape was the one. But nowadays, no. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if you don't change, the environment, the whole world will keep on changing. But if you stay, you will be redundant. No matter what you say, no matter how many carnivals, you're talking about carnival. Last year alone, in Malaysia, we did 5,000 carnivals in a year. But does this guarantee? No. Now, in bringing this in, I would like to share with you the theory of David Meister. It's called trust equation. The International Association of Deposit Insurance, in if I'm not mistaken, in 2015, they actually did some assessment. The assessment basically goes back into what are the things that can actually make them remain in existence and not redundant. It's simple. It's trust. If it's more, if you are government agencies. Now, if you remember Northern Rock Bank, what happened to Northern Rock Bank? I think it's not about the building scheme, the loan, that one, you put aside all those technical. The reason why bank run happened in, I think within 24 hours, is because of confidence. Day one, they have issues on their balance sheets in terms of provisioning, mortgage loan. Day two, this one nice person talking and then telling them that there's going to be issue in terms of deposit. Then the whole region got to know the next day they actually go bankrupt because there's no deposit. Everyone is queuing outside the bank, taking out the money, which is trust. So that's why trust is very, very key. And you have to understand, at the end of the day, whatever you do as public employment services, trust is very key. Now, how to basically talk about trust, building trust? I mean, David Meister, not me, this is David Meister. The equation, I'm not teaching you at maths, algebra, or whatever, but this is the equation. I just like the numbers that you put in. Trust, credibility, plus reliability, plus intimacy. And minus all self-orientation. Understand now? Does that struck you? Because when I first looked at this, it struck me. It struck me. Because why? I'm putting in effort to justify, not to make sure that the function is there. So, credibility, reliability, intimacy is very key. The next slide. Come on, Farah, we have to do this faster. Makiko looking at me. Now, when I actually look at the first thing, what you have to do, big data analytics. Big data mining, whatever. You talk about it, everyone talking about data. But at the end of the day, it's about big data analytics. And the ability is to make sure that we're able to actually come to the point of metadata. I'm not talking about having one numbers, but I'm talking about connecting these numbers and all the dots out there. And one nice challenge for you guys, you know, I used to say that banking data is very technical, but I think the central bank should know their data is not that challenging. The labor market data is much, much more challenging. And you need to understand this data. Why? Because you need to be able to project. That's why when you talk about public employment services, in terms of unemployment rate, you have to be part of it. At all time, I don't know, but I think in Malaysia, the one that actually talking about unemployment rate most of the time is central bank. Who are they? Who are they? They are banking. We are supposed to be the one, we are busy doing the job, doing placement. We are the ones supposed to do it. And we are the ones supposed to look into that. Now, the second one is, after having big data, then you do artificial intelligence. But most of the time, people jump into artificial intelligence. You don't have data, but you're going around talking about AI. That's rubbish. So, when you have AI, why do you add? Because you need to project. So in every intervention, when you have all the data, I think Your High Excellency that did show you the data just now, and you have to actually put up all those data, connects, and then put it as AI so that it can predict and it become a control mechanism for you when you implement certain initiatives. I think that's important. Because AI, at the end of the day, will actually help the employment services officer life much easier. Because at the end, you talk about matching, profile, skill. You can't be doing it like manual. If you do it manual, probably you, in completing a day job, you just manage to do 1 or 2%. But you do AI, those actually gone through the platform, immediately they can actually see how much that vacancies actually fit in with their profile. So that's why AI is one thing is important. The third one, bridging gaps and centralized collaboration. I think this is important. This is very key because you can't be working alone. And at all time, even the budget announcement that be made, you need to be part of it, because it's important that to be taken as a tool for you in doing placement as well as matching skill. Now, the other part, bridging, that is very important is public employment services need to also understand the human resource function. And I think human resource function need also to understand employment services. To tell you the truth, I've been in few organizations. When you talk about manpower planning, in reality, it's just a documentation work. It's just a documentation work. At the end of the day, what you will make sure, when you actually sit down and interview a person, you want to make sure that you have a person to actually undergo a process so that you can produce. But do you really, as human resource person, you do and exactly doing the matching process? You won't. At the end of the day, what does the CEO wants? And what does the board wants? The boards want to make sure that they receive the dividends on their investment that they made. And that's 12 months performance. But at the end, when you start in recruitment, but without doing profiling, that's where the matching issues comes. Then again, you've been going through and do presentation, cracking your head, and talking about, wow, why we have mismatched 40%, it keep on increasing. Because you're doing the same approach over and over again, but you're expecting different results. I think this is very key for public employment services to work together with human resource. And human resource need to understand, public employment services have all the taxonomy skill sets. So taking advantage of this, making sure that you put what are the skills required in your workplace and then align. Because if you go and get a consultant to actually do your profiling, you know how much they will charge you? A minimum of 500,000 ringgit Malaysia. 500 ringgit thousand Malaysia, I think equivalent to around 100, 200,000 US dollar, I guess. Yeah. So, I mean, get use of these public employment services functions. Now, the next one is basically talking about labor, understanding human behavior. Public employment services need to understand, and those actually working on it need to understand that PES is basically a passion. It's a passion. You go and help people, you know, and make sure that they get job. At the end of the day, you satisfy because you assist, you help people. And this does not just involve normal people. You have those vulnerable groups, those in prisons, ex-prisons, for example, ex-convicts. These are the, but why we can't put on our role as like a climbing a normal corporate ladder? It's different. That have to be, the mindset have to be correct. If we just come to work as public employment services, at the end of the day, every year, I wait. Okay, this year, I get 4 months bonus. Okay lah, fine, 4 months bonus lah. But that's not the thing. I think the mindset has to be correct. And this also include, when doing the recruitment, the profiling has to be correct. If you just imagine, if I recruit a person to become employment services officer, I mean, this guy finished degree like 3 to 4 years, score like, you know, out of 4, he scored 3.9 CGPA. He don't talk a lot. He do things individually. He just read a book, but he don't like to talk to people. Then I recruit him to become ESO, employment services. Does it make sense? It doesn't. So I think the profiling have to start looking into not just profiling for placement, but profiling in recruitment of employment services. I think that's key. Then the next one, virtual versus physical services. I think is important. If I do carnivals, And I invite, like, for example, those young graduated age 22, 23. Do you think they will come? They won't. Even my kids at home, they play games, they play Roblox. So I need to understand this. So I need to bring carnival into their homes. The like of, Roblox and doing carnival, utilizing metaverse concept. We are doing this, and I hope we can launch within this year. But it's going to change the whole way of people, getting jobs. Like, for example, interviews. You do traditional interviews. You have HR in front of you asking like 20 over questions at the end of the day. Then the HR will say that, okay, never mind, now I will, because your profile, I like you, I will take you. But we have to change the way, because the youngsters now, the way they work, the way they think is totally different. Totally different. They don't like to go and face people. So we have to take advantage of this scenario and start thinking how we can change this. Even making carnivals through internet. And the other part is about physical services. I think like Malaysia, we are not really that big, like 14 states, but our geographical location is very challenging. So there are certain places that we need to have a physical appearance. We need to be there. So this is combination. So it means that we have to profile and really understand and apply, not just looking at the normal where pairs need to have in every state. I mean, we have to start thinking differently. And the other part is increasing agility. I think this is key. It's important that we react based on what is going to happen. That's why when I actually mentioned about AI and big data analytics, because you predict and then you prepare before it happens. Now, I think interestingly, I always talk this with my colleagues, my chief investment officer, chief financial officer, because one thing challenging is public employment services need to be commercially driven instead of legalistic. Why I'm saying this? Because you can't build legal to build muscle, cannot. But you have to be commercial so that it can really fit in and take what are the needs of the public. Okay, Makiko, I understand. And again, understand human behavior. I think those are pretty much important to make sure that you're able to actually predict and you're able to give based on what they need. Next slide. Okay, I think based on that, in terms of intervention stages, I think we need to understand from what I actually mentioned just now, we have preemptive measures, we have during, and then we have post-emptive. So preemptive, it means that you have to go to, doing placement, you need to go to schools even to start changing. When you talk about mismatch, you need to start making sure that the kids know how to actually achieve certain ambition and how to actually go through and making sure that their study is aligned to whatever that they want to become. And of course, post-emptive, I think most important thing is employment insurance. And employment insurance should not happen when retrenchment happens. So you need to understand that you need to start to have communication and interaction with HR before retrenchment happens. So that will actually manage not just employment insurance part to make sure that they remain above the poverty lane, but also making sure that the placement can be done timely. Right, the next slide. Okay, I guess, okay, this is basically a video. I just want to show with you some samples that, because we try to change the whole things, how we actually do things. So there are certain, I think we started this interview using gamification and sports. So we invited companies, HR from companies to join us. At the moment, it's still a small number, but we are pushing through. because by doing this, we manage the transition process, interview to getting letter offers. I think this is very important. So that's why we try to change the approach to make sure that not just the job seekers, but also employer got to actually do this together with them. So we started this last few weeks in Melaka, one of our carnivals.
Keyakinan diri selaras matlamat PERKESO dalam mewujudkan tenaga kerja yang dinamik serta berdaya saing.
And I think because of doing gamification, I think it pushed up in terms of the placement. I think for these 2 days, we managed to place, I think, letter offer issues about 568 letter offers, if I'm not mistaken, and 1,200 have actually managed to proceed for second interview. So that's why we're going to push this through, and of course we're going to change more. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much within the time constraint. And well, I think you are you are very inspiring at the beginning in terms of, we need to embrace change. And indeed, I'm of the generation that recognize many of the logos, so it's true, things change and you need to adapt. Perhaps one point that emerged, maybe, well, there are many, but one area is about making this kind of labor market information, we used to call it, well, we still do, labor market information system, but making it more like a labor market intelligence, which you can use as a policymakers, or maybe from the user side, that they can understand better what's going on in the labor market. So thank you so much to all the speakers, but I think we have time for Q&A. Yeah, anybody from the room? I think any questions to any of the speakers, I think is very welcome. Oh, please just quickly introduce yourself. Thank you.
Alakbarov. I'm representing Azerbaijan. Thank you very much for presentations. Very nice presentations. My question is the last presentation. You mentioned about the gamification during the, let's say, the events. What kind of particular tools, like 2-3 tools, did you use during these events? Because it was very interesting to me. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. We also use soccer, and we use also puzzle blocks. We also use ping pong, and we also use the gaming online, because at the end of the day, each game will actually carry or signify certain threats. For example, high agility, innovation, communication, and most importantly, teamwork. Because most of the industry, when we sit down with HR, they are looking for those high teamwork, innovations, and I think communications. Yeah.
So you make them like the company representatives to play with the candidates, right? Or do they always play, or sometimes they just look how the candidate are playing?
The first thing is basically how they play and the result that they have. So every time when they actually play, so the result will be shared through the monitor, and HR that actually doing or playing the game with them will actually assess and then go back and look at the score, whether it's actually aligned or not. And each score we will give according to agility, high cognitive abilities, so on and so forth. So those vacancies will be aligned back to those individual trends, and that's where the HR will actually look and then find the suitable candidates for them.
Do do we have something? I also have some questions coming through online, but if there is another person, perhaps maybe we take one more from the floor. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Hawati from Krazana Research Institute, a think tank based in Malaysia. Thank you so much for your insightful presentation. I have two questions. Firstly, related to the role of digital and technology in improving the efficiency of employment services, especially in terms of making the services a lot more tailored between the applicants as well as between applicants and the firms. So I wonder, based on your experience, to what extent you think that technology have been able to improve the efficiency, matching efficiency, but at what point do you think that human intervention is still needed, especially in terms of making sure that the humanistic elements of the both firms and applicants are matched? So that is the first question. The second question is related to the employment service by sector, public and private. I do see that there are a lot of strengths that is provided by the public employment services, but at the same time, there are some niche area that the private employment services have a lot to offer. So how do these two sectors can collaborate to ensure that we achieve the most effective outcome that we want to see? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Perhaps we start with Mr. Azirruan. No?
Yeah. Howard always asks technical questions like this. Basically, why I think the first question, I think it will help in terms of doing matching faster. Matching, when I say matching, to make sure that the requirement made by the employer can be identified in any of the job seeker in just a short time period. So that, when they actually go through, put in, like in my future job portal, when they register, and they will actually update what qualification they have, what are the skills that they have. So those skills that been advertised in vacancies, that can be done faster. So when it's done faster, of course, it will increase the possibility of placement or employability. But of course, there's a challenge to it, because most of the time, I think these are the things I think public employment services need to work together with HR, because to identify skills that required, because most of the time they will put in qualification. I think qualification is different, but skill is different. So we have to differentiate that. And the other part, when they actually mentioned about how the thing that still we cannot put in the system is, I think the thing that qualification skill, you can do that. But at the end of the day, HR still need to actually meet them, because they need to assess whether in terms of culture of that person is according to the culture of the companies. I think that need to be clear. And this you can't really assess through psychometry alone, but you need to sit down and discuss with the person.
Thank you. Would you have something to say on public-private? Oh, there were two parts to the question, so if you would like to just mention a few words. One was about this efficiency, the other about public-private, what's the difference for employment
To answer
service?
the first question on the role of public employment service on the digitalization, maybe we can look at the side of the audience of the public employment services, the clients of the public employment services, the job seekers and employers. So in the Philippines, there will be more Gen Zs, or those in the age of 11 to 26. And in the next years to come, this will be the largest part of the labor force, or the largest group of labor force in the Philippines. And when we talk about Gen Zs, they want fast, they want efficient, they want effective services for them. No, otherwise they will leave the job openings, they will leave the public employment services, and on the other side, the employers would not get the right workers. You see, the role of digitalization is very important, not only in ensuring that we cater to the needs of the job seekers and employers, but also in moving the market in a fast-paced economy.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We have, you provided us a very nice, broad overview perspectives, whereas the questions are getting a little bit specific. We have some final questions, but coming through online. We have one question to Mr. Lucas. How is the Philippines addressing the digital divide, particularly in rural areas? And we have two questions to Mr. Azirruan. One is, well, leveraging the public-private partnership to support workforce development in the digital economy. And then how to promote collaboration within organizations to technology adoptions so that to seasoned employees. Is this clear?
To cease.
To seasoned employees. I guess so the workers are ready, I guess.
Seasonal. Oh, okay, all right. Understand. Okay, so
You want to?
you want to answer this?
The Philippines is now addressing the digital divide concerns through different programs and services of the Philippine government. First is that the Philippine government implements programs and services, particularly reskilling and upskilling of workers and any persons in the Philippines who want to gain opportunities, who want to learn digital skills through the Department of Information and Communications Technology, which was created just in 2016. So imagine that the Philippines has just created that department for the information and communications landscape in the Philippines. Another thing is that there are laws that are being pushed for the digitalization of the services in the country, making sure that the workers are being provided with opportunities on, particularly on digital skills. There are a lot of caravans being implemented, being created in the far-flung areas in the country to make sure that those who are not able to access opportunities for reskilling, upskilling at the central areas of their localities, at least they were given the opportunities through the government by going through those far-flung areas.
Okay. Before, I think Howard did ask about private and public. I think one thing clear, I know almost all public employment services actually cater the 80% of mass vacancies. So most of them doesn't include C-suites. And most of the time, C-suite will actually go through private. You do understand this, and it's a challenge for public employment services to actually do that, yes, but I think it's about time for public employment services to start looking into that matter. And of course, it can be done working together, but at the end of the day, you have to actually look at the regulatory framework, who governs them. Because at the end of the day, all the C-suite vacancies will be taken by, not local, but I think that's not healthy to the economy. And if that is the condition, I think the certain regulatory framework need to be in place to make sure that the reporting structure need to be aligned to the public employment services so that it can, for at least if they cannot dictate in terms of filling in the vacancies, but they have vacancies to be advertised. And I think it goes the same for expatriate process, need to also go through the public employment services to make sure that, the vacancies can be filled out with immediate available candidates when it happens. Okay. And the other part, I think when you talk about working together, yes, I think there's a need to that, because that's why when I talk about understanding behavior, you can't do one strategy to fit all. Like, for example, you have to identify niche. I mean, what we do basically, like, for example, those low income, in Malaysia, they call it B4T. We have B4T, M4T, T20. So T20, all the rich people. And 20, consider half, middle. But B40 is considered lower income. So these people, in order to actually provide public employment services for them, you have to find a way that, fits them. Because if you do big, huge carnival, they won't come. So you need to actually look at, go to their location, their apartments, just do a simple one, identify them, profiling, and then that's where the placement can actually happen. And the other part, also working together with prison, for example, as convict, because there's a law in managing them. You have to understand that and making sure that the transition after they've been released from prison to working life is seamless, and making sure that confidentiality is there. So I think you need to actually work together with other ministries, other organizations, but understanding the requirement. And the last one, they mentioned that seasonal worker. Of course, I think youngsters now, is a different way of thinking. When they graduated, after 3 years, they will come and see you and ask when they will be promoted as manager. That's their life. I mean, that's the time that they have. During my time last time, I have to really crawl and for 10, 15 years, making sure that then only got the opportunity. It's different, everything fast. So it's what our colleague mentioned. So you need to understand that. And that's why the most important thing is profiling. Profiling and the database, not just putting in qualifications, but skill is important. Most of the time, we forgot that skills that makes you move higher, not qualifications. And we need to actually put up aside and differentiate that. You have degree of accounting. Does that mean you can do full of set of account? It doesn't necessarily so. So that's why it's different. That will actually give you strength in terms of putting and climbing the ladder is basic skill. So that need to be different. So if we do profiling, whether you're seasonal or whatever, it's easy for you to jump because this is there. And its opportunity will always be there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Unfortunately, the time is up, but thank you to all the speakers for your insights and experience sharing. I hope maybe in the 2 days, maybe there will be other opportunities that people you can exchange further. So thank you again.
Thank you very much to the moderator and all our speakers for such insightful and thought-provoking presentation.